Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody. The podcast where we talk with people behind top events to showcase how they positively transform the communities they serve. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I'm really excited to have my friend Carrie Frugé, like Blue Jay, as she told me in the green room over. And Carrie is the founder and owner of Biddy Up Auctions. And what we're going to talk about today is how successful auctions can drive a nonprofit's mission. And Carrie's done, many top fundraising auctions. I recently saw her do one for the Round Top Film Festival. I've seen her do ones for the Elizabeth Ann Seton Board as well. And she's a very dynamic, engaged professional. She's really able to really help raise the fundraising and profile for various organizations. So we're really lucky to have her as a guest. And with that, Carrie, welcome. And I'm so excited to have you here today.
Well, I have to say, Rob, it's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much because I love Central Texas.
I know you do. And, you know, I, you know, I was so fascinated. You and I were having a conversation recently, and I just love your path of becoming an auctioneer because not that our backgrounds are identical, but they certainly rhyme. Let's just say,
Okay.
because you started in one industry and you wound up in another industry. I started in that same industry and I wound up in another industry. So share a little bit about your path on becoming an auctioneer.
So it's twofold. By training, I'm a computer science engineer. I graduated from SMU and I worked at SailPoint at the time when all of this transpired. And I was selected to be part of Leadership Austin in 2017. So, best class ever, everyone out there, BCE, you know who you are. Um, and it was the first time I really had that broader exposure to like the three different communities: our government, nonprofit sector, and where I really thrived, which is in the corporate sector. So at that time, I was doing sales for SailPoint, and I was very good at separating people from their money. And so I thought, let's take that talent and transition it because oftentimes I was traveling during the week and the weekends were open. So what happened is my sister and I were at the Austin Humane Society gala, and it was a really beautiful moment. And we were watching the auctioneer and felt that passion and inspiration that came from being there and the support level. And they were doing an award. And when they were giving that award, she looked at me, Meg, and she said, "Hey, I think we can do this." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I mean, I'm a computer science engineer. This is the last thing I want to do is be on a stage. And she is a broadcast journalism major. So she's like, "Absolutely, let's do this." And long story short, she did threaten me. She's like, "You can do this, or we can do the Amazing Race." I said, we're not doing that." So in 2017, we went to auctioneering school in Louisville, Texas. We took vacation. We went for 80 hours of education, I believe, and we took our exams, which for those of you who don't know, you actually have to go and get licensed. So like a professional realtor or a plumber, you go to TDLR, you take those exams, and we graduated. There were very few women in that class, and so we were really thrilled to be part of it, and it was fun. We got to go to the auto auctions. We learned how to chant, but the two of us do not come from an auction family. Most people do. There are multiple generational auctioneers, and we were two sisters with a dream of really helping our community. So that's how it started. And we started off as Siren Sisters Auctioneers. But over time, as you can imagine with life, we really honed in our craft. The first year, we did our first auctions for my friends in Leadership Austin and really started to see that grow. And then COVID hit. And that was a big, setback. But during that time, we did one live auction. And it was for Seal's Legacy. And that was pretty special. But now I have kind of broken out and gone on my own. And I'm called Biddy Up. And then that's a nod to Giddy Up. Let's go.
I love that. And it's, not many people go from computer science to sales to auctioneer. I mean, that's a highly personalized and unique career trajectory and career path. You know, talk about, if someone were to come to you and be like, you know what, I'm thinking about making this career pivot or thinking about making this shift. What advice would you give someone in deciding to make a career shift and really going for it? Like, what are some things they need to do before they do that?
Well, I'm very analytical by nature. So, first of all, you need a glide path. So, you need to back in to where you need to be. So, you need to set forth what is that? The volume for me is the volume of auctions. And what are your KPIs? Like, how will I determine if I'm successful? And so, I broke it into two distinct categories, the quantitative and the qualitative metrics. The quantitative are how many auctions I'm having, how many inquiries we receive, versus the qualitative, which is do we have great rapport afterwards? Did we make the impact? Did we hit the numbers that we needed to? And do we feel good afterwards, like we did our personal best? And so we set those KPIs up. So for other individuals, it's going to be how do I get where I need to go and how long will that take? So for me, it was over time because I needed to transition and it wasn't going to be an immediate break because auctions are booked almost a year in advance. If people don't know that, but that's how it happens.
Well, all right. So, talk to me about, when did you realize, okay, you know what, I'm done doing, computer science and doing, scientific sales, and I know now I'm ready. Especially because, with auctions, it's not like the income is necessarily immediate because they do book a year out in advance. So that planning really comes into play. So I'd love to kind of understand when you knew it was time to make that jump.
Yeah, it actually happened this February, and I was not completely prepared for the jump, but it was that inflection point that I think you hear everyone talk about when you're like, I have to make the decision now. So, our team had been invited, and we're scheduled to go to Playa de Carmen, Mexico. So, we do international auctions. This is particularly important to me, especially because I was raised here in Austin, Texas, but also on the border down in South Texas. And so, being able to cross the border and help children go to high school and go to college was really important to me. So what happened was I was supposed to have vacation days to go and do this auction because it was going to be on a Wednesday. And then there was an inflection point where things changed and I needed to be in Las Vegas for work on a Wednesday. And this is 3 days before their event. And there was just no way in my personal way of evaluating the situation that there was other choice. I said, there is no way I can get another auctioneer down to Playa de Carmen in less than 3 days' notice. This is their biggest fundraiser. It sends hundreds of kids to school. Like, I can't not show up because this has changed. And at that time, I was like, okay, you know, let's dig deep and let's do it. So,
You know,
and by the way, it was the most fun auction that we've ever done. Like the international crowd, you can see on our website, people are cheering and they're excited, and it was so festive. And we doubled what they made the year before, and it was the exact same audience. They were overwhelmed with joy, and I actually like cried afterwards because it was so special to do, and it made such a difference in so many children's lives in, kind of the outskirts and the jungle areas of Playa de Carmen. And you just realize how lucky we are in our lives every day.
absolutely. And you can hear that gratitude in your voice. But what I love about that was you literally had a fork in the road and you were working towards something. And sometimes when you have the fork in the road, it's never when you plan it. And the fact that the fork was there, you're like, you know what? I know that this is the right path for me, and I'm gonna go all in. And the rewards were literally almost immediately reaped because within 3 days, you doubled the fundraising, the auction total of the previous year. So it's almost like it was the universe telling you, okay, I made the right decision.
Yeah, and it's true. And I felt like that gift because we always ask for a sign, and I received it. I was like, okay, I may not know it all, but we're going to go.
Absolutely.
And I think the door
Absolutely.
will open up.
And it did. And, it opened up, as you said, and you evolved into Biddy Up. And I want to talk a little bit about personal branding, because branding now, especially because, like you said, you didn't have the benefit of three generations of auctioneers ahead of you. This is something that you did on your own. I want to talk about, your personal brand and how you convey that, whether it's on platforms like social media or when you're at, other events, like I know you and I were recently at a Better Conference for Better Unite, and those types of things are really critical in terms of, getting your awareness out. So talk about your personal brand and how you convey that.
So I would say that my personal brand is really combining that combination of like that Texas energy with elegance and then strategy. So that analytical computer science piece in backing into making those record-breaking auctions. So it's those detailed journeys. Part of the brand comes with, I think, style, like being like, hey, I really am from Texas. I was from Austin. I went to Travis Heights Elementary. I went to, Hill Country Middle School. Like, being part of the fabric of Austin, I think is really important to understand where people are coming from. And then also being part of that tech world because you get all the innovation and excitement. So the personal brand would be, I think people see so much in images, and that's a big shout out to Kara Beatty with Blocks of Style. She is my neighbor and has one of the toughest jobs out there, which is to get me outfitted for all the thematic dressing. Now, Rob, you don't know this, but there is everything coming up in this next season. Gradations of cowboy themes. We have hacienda chic. We have cosmic cowboy. We have more boots and bling. So you have to be very curated in what we have. And I think that style is part of that. I also think kindness is really another part of that. If you meet me, you know that I'm not a extremely extroverted person. I'm a normal person.
Well, all right, so talk about that because not because there's state there I don't want to say stage persona, but like what shifts for you? And I'm more introverted myself, and I could never. That's why I admire people like you so much because I could never ever in a billion years do what you do. But talk about how you're able to get from especially for people who are introverts who struggle with that. How do you harness that, put that on a shelf? How do you handle that so that when you come on stage and, when you're on stage, like you could fool me that you said, you're an introvert in any way because I just, but that's part of when you love something, the joy just comes out.
Yeah, I think it's knowing what our mission is, meaning we are there to do something great in the world. And right now, we're bombarded by so much news. I would say when I'm speaking to like friends and colleagues, most people now are tuning it out because it is so negative. And these are like highly educated individuals. But when we're on stage at a charity fundraiser, we're doing everything right in the world. We're bringing together people who want to support. We're making it actionable so you see the change, and we're connecting with the stories. And beforehand, like I'm going to do a Mansa Pack coming up, I went to see the veterinarian clinics and saw the doctors and the different machines. Like it's everything right out there. And so I think it's so important when I go on stage, it's not about me. I'm just a vessel to convey, whether it's a very heartwarming story around animals. It's the enrichment of the cultural landscape of Round Top, Texas, which I think is spectacular, by the way. Elizabeth Ann Seton Board helping so many mothers and young babies. I have many friends who've had children in the NICU there, so that's very important to me. But it's putting aside my feelings and realizing it's go time. Like we're here to do all the good things. And so you just go out with that power. You're like, here we are. And not to mention, I do study. So I do study my notes for technical glitches.
Well, you have, yeah, you kind of have to do, you have to do that. But preparedness is key. And there's something, I was really fascinated, and people are going to be like, well, that's, that's, I don't want to say superficial, but that's not the meat of it, but it is. And that is that you've got a wardrobe and you're dressing to the theme because nothing says I want to be there more than showing a nod to the theme. And that just goes to show that the thought and preparation and dedication is much more than just knowing what the auction items are and who's in the audience, but it's also the package and presentation of they're selling from you. And if you show up fully wanting to be there with your nod to the theme, people are going to sense that.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. I hope so.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you were talking about, when you had said like with Seton that, you engage it, with that auction because, you've had friends who have, been in the NICU. But I like to who have had babies who have been in the NICU. But, talk about what you look for in nonprofits before you sign on as an auctioneer. Because yes, you get inquiries like you said, but you may not, they may not necessarily align with your values. So it's, what will make you say yes, they inquire, you say yes, and you two are going to be synergistically on the same page.
Well, that's why I always like a call. There are the things that are kind of non-negotiable. Like what is like this it let me reframe this. When I'm on the call with a nonprofit, I can immediately tell, is this person really engaged? If they are a volunteer, is this going to be the auction committee? And how much do they want to do this? Or is this more like checking the box? This is an action item, we've got to go. Because they deliver very different outcomes. Unless you have an event planner that is going to run this like a extraordinary event. So it's really the commitment to the cause is one, and then the collaboration between the two of us. And for instance, it doesn't matter the size of the organization. Most people will not take really small auctions. I actually enjoy taking them and leveling them up and breaking their records year over year and seeing that movement and progression is so, so exciting. Like keeping kids in school, which is the one that we did Playa de Carmen, that one, because I think that they felt like they hit a plateau. They do an auction every year. It was the same number of attendees in the exact same venue. But what I loved about them is that they were so engaged on my suggestions. Like they took the feedback and they did it. Because sometimes you can give feedback and people have expectations that they know best. Like we're naturally human. But it does make a big difference, especially because this is what I do day in and day out. And I see the like archetypes of the bidders. I see the audiences. I also see what's trending. I know what motivates people based off of who the audiences are. An audience in this case, where these are not their children, they are children of um, they're not the parents, which you would see in like a private school, though. Parents in private schools are great fundraisers because they're directly impacting those kids. Like they're going to do it no matter what. But these are no one's children in that room. They're children that they are giving a better life to someone they don't know. And the way you speak to that is distinctly different, especially when it's in a different country. And I have a few like that. And it's really exciting. And also, your auction items have to be different.
Well,
So,
that's absolutely true. But you said something earlier, and I want to point this out because it's really important. And that is you like taking the smaller auctions and
mhm.
having them grow. Because I will tell you from my experience of having gone to events for 15 years, what was big 15 years ago is not big now, and what wasn't big 15 years ago is big now. And it's really incredible for you to have that foresight and vision to see what's coming down the line and not necessarily just what's in front of you.
Exactly. That's how life is. You have to focus forward and you have to invest. And when you invest in people and they invest in you, it's a huge, huge difference. So when I work with my different organizations, we have a minimum of 5 meetings. And that's so important because it's not the auctioneer just taking a look at the auction items, a few days before and then going up on stage. Like we back into those numbers. We talk about like the archetypes of the bidders. Like for instance, you can have the value seekers. If we know that these auctions traditionally don't raise a lot, they're looking for a good deal. They're probably more likely to engage in silent or low price point auction items. So we have to make sure that they're, or we've got the big game trophy hunters, which you and I saw together at both of the events we've been at. These are motivated by prestige, the thrill of winning. Like you hear all the yelling, and they're seated with all their friends, and they'll engage in those like one of a kind items and exclusive experiences. Then we have the mission driven, and those are the cultivated donors that are motivated by that desire to support the cause that they're directly impacting. And they love the story. And so you'll see them really show up in Paddles Up or Mission Moment. And the final type, and these are always the wild cards, and I love them, are the social bidders. They're motivated by sharing like fun experiences with friends. They engage, they probably had, a cocktail or two, and they're like cheering each other on. And they like the travel, they like the catered dinners or local outing, things that can be shared. So that's kind of how I like to do that.
Well, it's good. I'm glad you mentioned, because the it really is a wild card. And there's no the only preparation is to be prepared for it to happen, not how it's going to happen or what they're going to do, because that you have no idea of. Just be prepared that it might happen, and if it might happen, how are you going to pivot? I know you got something to share.
No, I have so many thoughts, Rob. So many thoughts for you today.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad we're bringing this part up, but there's two things. One is, and you know this from your sales background that, develop. It's almost like you as an auctioneer, you're the salesperson, and the nonprofit's the client. So what is the key to having a good relationship with nonprofits from an auctioneer perspective?
It's collaboration and doing what you say when you say it, right? So it's delivery, collaboration and delivery.
Collaboration and delivery, and just being a person of your word and just saying, if I'm going to do this, you're going to do that. And auctions tend to come at a point in the evening where usually, not always, but a good majority of the time, there'll be a program or mission video that will often precede the auctioneer, if not directly, pretty shortly beforehand. So what advice would you give to an organization looking to create their program and mission video that tease their auction up for, really for great success, and a really dynamic room?
Yeah, I would say a great example of this is Ubuntu. The Ubuntu Life Foundation, they have a big event here in November. It's a big safari party, it's very glamorous. And they had made this mission video last year that I would consider the gold star of all mission videos I've ever seen. Having the mission video is so critically important because oftentimes when we're walking through what we call the run of show, like who is going to deliver this message, what I find, these are the things not to do. I'm just going to flag these like high risk items for everyone listening, high risk. I'm going to have someone that benefited from the services we provided, so beautiful, but we've never heard them speak. Terrible idea. Like, we cannot take someone that's never spoken in front of hundreds of people and put them up there and do that. This is a perfect time to film them in a one-on-one and edit. So they are comfortable and the delivery is emotional versus very robotic. Secondly, do not put someone up there as well that is so connected to the organization that they use it for the moment to shout out because they don't want to forget anyone. They want to be so inclusive. But their 3 minute time slot turns to like 15 minutes. Everyone zones out. So that makes it very hard. So the mission video, to your point, is one of the most important tools that we bring to the live auction. With Ubuntu's mission video, they told the story and they told a beautiful story that directly related to the reason why we were fundraising for this year. And their mission is really centered around providing, you know, physical therapy, speech therapy to disabled children in Africa, right? So they have their entire school in Kenya. It's amazing. But they start with a story of a father and it's in black and white. So the mood feels dark. And it talks about his journey that his son was born and he was very disabled and he couldn't walk or feed himself. And so many of the villagers felt that it was a curse that they wouldn't go to his store, and he eventually had lost his place to live, and then his wife died, so he was living in a hovel. And so you felt this in the morning, and he's getting his son ready for school and feeding him and there's just a little bitty light, and this is general, like, these are their living conditions. And he would put him on his back, even though he was large at this point, and carry him all the way to the school bus. And then it moves into this beautiful colored, and all the kids are on the school bus, and you feel the laughter, and then you see him, I'm start crying now, at school, and you see his change and his mood and his father's like relief. And knowing that we can do that is so beautiful. But you have to tell the story and you have to bring people in. And then when we go into the mission moment, you have to give me the words to correlate it back so you feel like we're doing it.
That was beautiful. And what I love about that is, yes, it began heavy, but when it transformed to color, it got to light because, there needs to be something hopeful in that in that message, and it ended with hope. And when you have that hope, that is going to compel people to give, because I've seen mission videos just be really dark from start to finish, and they end and people are just, they're depressed. And
Yes.
that is the worst thing you can do for an auctioneer. It's, yes, you want to get the message, but you've also got to get them to give. And that's a very delicate balance to do them. But that was a beautiful, that almost sounds like a transformation as opposed to a mission, the way you described that. That was just
It,
beautiful.
it was a transformation. And like to really echo your point, Rob, like these videos should be 25% the problem and 75% the joy of the solution because we are part of the solution.
Absolutely. And it's really that's a really good thing. 25% heavy, 75% hope. Bring them all
Mhm.
together. They get it. They get what the problem is, but you're ending on a higher feeling. And that's kind of when you walk on the stage as an auctioneer. And I kind of want to direct the attention to that. So what are the secrets to, because an auctioneer has to do a lot, and I don't think people realize just how much y'all have to do, because really in 10 seconds you've got to raise the room's energy, keep a commanding presence, and attract people's attention to compel them to give. So what are the secrets to doing that so that you have your audience engaged? Because an auctioneer is asking for a lot. You're asking for their attention on a
Yes.
Saturday night when
Yes.
they're there with their friends. That's a big ask.
I know, and everyone is so happy to be there. They all want to catch up, and they've been waiting for this moment. So, I think as an auctioneer, what I love to do is bring great music, amazing graphics behind. We want to have that transition and that feel. I would say it's almost like an Instagrammy. We're here together. My spotters with the cowboy spotters are like I would say almost all the magic because they're out there, they're making, the like woots and like answering questions and, digging deep. They bring a lot of pizzazz. And for me, it's just, playing with people. Like people want to be seen and they want to be recognized. And it's fun. Like I would say this is like aggressive sales meets cheerleading.
That needs to be a hashtag. It's the intersection of aggressive sales and cheerleading. Because that's essentially what it is. That's exactly in like 5 words. That is what an auctioneer does. Aggressive selling and cheerleading all in one, and making people like they feel a difference. And that's where I don't want to say egging them on, but the highly encouraging them to continue bidding,
There
comes
should be
from.
rounds of applause and your friends should be cheering and there should be some action and that's what I love. Like Texas brings the passion in the live auction.
They really do, and no city really better than Austin, quite frankly, to do that. And
I
talk about. Oh, go ahead.
no, I second that, Rob. There is no city better in the state than Austin
Or
for the
anywhere,
drama
quite
factor.
frankly. Oh, no kidding. Now, what goes into a great live auction item? Like, talk about what a good live auction item will have in a way that it connects with its audience.
Okay, so I've kind of spent some time thinking about my most historical fun ones lately, and we'll go through it. So for instance, the Round Top Film Festival, where you were just at, they really focus on the focus of like the panelists and enriching the cultural landscape of Round Top. So, what was special in the live auction is we had Laura Goodson, she's an artist based out of Houston, combined with Janice Halcyon Bikes, and the CEO created a custom painted bike. Okay. And it has its own render filler tag that says the Round Top Film Festival, and it's the bike of the Round Top Film Festival. So it's a one of a kind customized piece, but it's that intersection of supporting Round Top, having something from an artist that's incredible, and no one else can have it. So I think that was really beautiful. Other examples were like for schools, if you have parents that are, very beloved. I had a private school here in Austin where one of the dads was on the Food Network. So, what we sold in this one, so it's thematic, the dad would take a group of like 15 people on a school bus to all his favorite eats. So, it was a food tour through Austin. And that one people went crazy for. And we actually sold it twice. It would for a lot. It surprised me because it tied back to the school. So that was really geared towards your audience. Like we have to know what the audience wants. Let's see. one of a kind, super exclusive experience. Another one was one we just had. It was a tequila maker out of Mexico. You stayed at his personal hacienda. He took you throughout this hacienda, and they have churches from 1623 on the hacienda. You get to make your own tequila, and you get 4 barrels, so it's 4 couples go. So like it's a way of seeing the cultural heritage of Mexico, unlike any other experience. You cannot buy it. So those very exclusive experiences, but shared, are the ones that go for the most. One thing to note that I really think makes a live auction good, roughly 15% of the audience participates in live auction because the price points move so high so quickly. So there have been historically some really smart things to do here. I did one for Joy RX where they had Band of Horses come in and do a private concert. So I sold 2 seats for $500 to everyone in the audience that wanted to go. This allowed everyone to participate. You didn't have to have 10, 15, $40,000 for live auction. You could do it at a $500 price point, have a super exclusive, cool experience at ACL, and that was amazing. Or another example was there was this trip to Bali that had a super low price point. So how we sold it was, hey, don't go to South Padre or Cinnamon Shores. Let's go to Bali, 7 days, massage, scuba diving. And it was $1,000. It was a really low price point because we are coming out of COVID. And I sold that, I think, 25 times. So what that means is those packages have much lower entry points. The volume on it actually creates so much more revenue for the organization than the big ones, and it allows your audience to be engaged. So people aren't zoning out and talking to each other like, oh, I actually really want that, and I can get it.
Absolutely. Those were all really cool. And I especially love kind of the, the lower price point that's kind of accessible to everyone because it really does widen, allow the pool to widen. The other way to do that too is through fund a needs, and, especially with fund a needs, because you can go down to, lower dollar levels. So everyone does feel like they can participate. How do you feel about fund needs versus live auctions? And should organizations do both or focus on one or the other, in terms of
No,
how you would helmet?
hands down, they should do both. Um, and it really depends on the audience level. Um, I always find that one traditionally does better than the other, depending on the mission and who's in the room. And so, a good auctioneer will always ask for your historical information, like what did you do last year? What were those numbers like? So they get a sense, is this crowd really focused on the mission moment? If so, we should invest more money on an extraordinary video and we should have lower auction items so we don't exhaust them. Or we can flip the order, or auction is actually where all the money's at because people love the action and they want to go on trips together. So let's keep that on the front side and then do mission moment, but we'll put some prizes on the back side. So it's that gamification of the area, but you have to do that off of data.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And it really, what that boils down to is just understanding your audience and what they're willing to accept and or do. And it's going to be radically different. What Carrie just described were two very different organizations. And that just goes to show auctions are not one size fits all. It really, you have to customize it. You have to give the auctioneer the data, the information, your audience history, whatever it is, so that they can guide you in the right way so that you get the return that you're looking for.
That's true. And I also appreciate the trust of organizations that they give me the ability to try. So I have a big auction coming up, but the price point, this organization is super well known, but traditionally the auction items sell at $2,000 and the highest was seven, which really surprised me. So this year we're going to do a volume play, which will be the ability to sell something multiple times and see if we get a lot more participation in the audience, which is my goal, so we can really drive up those live auction numbers. And then also we put some wild cards in there to see if maybe we just didn't have the right mix or their understanding of who the audience is changing because demographics change year to year based off of who your co-chairs are. So a really strong live auction is, thank goodness, the direct, I guess, outcome of really good co-chairs. So thank you to all my co-chairs in the past.
Well, and they're so important because they're going to bring the people in the room. And it's really important to just remember, just because something was, and there is no such thing as a perfect event, but if something was, we'll use the word magical. You're never going to create that magic again because couples get divorced, people move away, new people come to town. You're never going to have that same exact mix of people in a room ever again. And it's just really important to do that because I've seen organizations be like, well, I just want to recreate this night. And it's like, that's never going to happen. No one can do that.
It is true. It is true.
All
Because
right.
they want all the magic. And you're like, the magic is different each year.
It is because it's different energy and you got a different theme, you got a different everything, something is going to be different no matter what it is, no matter how hard you try to replicate it. And, I want to go back to, because we've kind of danced around it, but I kind of want to address it more directly. And that is just working with organizations to identify and tie specific auction items to major donors that are in attendance. So talk about the importance of that and, having them identify as to kind of where they are so that you as the auctioneer can kind of zero in kind of specific messaging, either to get them started or to drive the bidding up.
Yeah, it's really important. Most auctions, like let's say the hallmark item, like the biggest, most expensive wow item we have, is typically pre-sold, meaning we know that someone wants it. Um, Strong boards will go out to their top donors and kind of show them like a showcase. Smaller schools will go to the parents they know they're typically the top sponsors and say, hey, we're considering these things, which is most appealing to you. Pre-selling your items is critical. Art is typically sold ahead of time. They know there's certain collectors, they know they're going to bring it to the stage. So people already are thinking about it. Secondly, like advertising ahead of time, like putting that on Instagram. So beforehand, when you're with your friends, like, oh, did you see? They have this amazing, I don't know, Cabo trip with a chef and it's a once in a lifetime experience. Let's do that. Um, and then also, they need to advertise that in the email because if people don't know about it ahead of time, they cannot. I mean, they can, but it's pretty rare that everyone's going to come together on really top tier items. So, knowing what the audience wants, um, and sometimes people have ideas that I'm like, I don't think that will ever sell, and it does. So, I'll give you a perfect example. And this is the moment, and I'm getting ready to do their auction again. It was for Casa of Highland Lakes. And they have a very special organization. It's out in Horseshoe Bay. And they said, Carrie, we have normal lineup, but we were just donated these extraordinary garage doors. I was like, who is going to go to a live auction and be like, honey, I need these $15,000 garage doors right now. Like, forget about the trips, forget about the guns, forget about whatever else is in this auction. I want these garage doors. I was like, okay, like, let's do this. And sure enough, I found out ahead of time that we had construction companies as some of the sponsors that build specialty homes. So lo and behold, it was one of the biggest auction items of the night, and it came in literally a week before, and it was a complete wild card, and we weren't sure what to do with it, but it was so generous by that donor that we put it in, and sure enough, amazing. So I think I'm constantly surprised because it really is reflective of who's in the audience.
It absolutely is. And there are things that I'm like, how did this not go for six figures because it was such a dazzling thing? But it's like, I'll give an example. So there was a package one time that sold for $20,000 I thought was going to sell for 200 because it involved private planes. But everyone in that audience had a private plane, so they could have cared less about flying on a private plane because they wanted to fly on their own. I know that that's probably above, it's certainly above my head, and it's probably above anyone's head listening. But that just goes to show you never know. You may think it's the most dazzling thing and it doesn't land. And you've got this thing, you're like, well, who would do this? And all of a sudden, everyone wants to do it. And that's kind of the spontaneity of a room and how a good auctioneer like yourself just navigates that.
I mean, it's fun, and sometimes you can tell. My guys will signal to me, there is no more money in this room. I'm like, okay, let's wrap this up. So I do try to keep it really peppy. So that's one thing I do want to kind of circle back on. How do we keep the energy in the room? We make it fast, we make it fun, and I will not sit there and pound on a number for like 10 minutes because people are ready to go. They want to have a fun time. Like the auction is the revenue generating part of the night, but it's part of the experience. If people get stuck for an hour in a live auction, they don't want to come back to your event. They're like, that was long. I couldn't talk to my friends. I couldn't get up and go to the bar. Like you need to make it peppy, super fun, and get it done.
Exactly. And so they come back so that those major donors come back the next year. And that, that energy and making sure that it's quick yet purposeful is really important because that does affect that kind of, if it goes on too long, it's like a roller coaster, and there is a point where you're going too high with the crest that, people want to go down, and just enjoy and have fun. So you've got to really balance that really well. So that was really, really good insight. And I know we're coming up on time here, but I know you'll have a very interesting take on this, but I always like asking this type of question at the end, but that is, what is one thing all successful fundraising events have in common?
Um, I think there's like two really successful fundraising events will usually have an event planner or a producer. So either or both. That's the like excellent. And a team that gets things done on time,
So being
like
on time,
action.
and thank you for saying the event planner piece. Every event must have one because you, as the organization, even if you have an in-house event staff, hire an event planner because you need your events manager focused on the event guest, not the event logistics. That's where the event planner can come in and take that off your plate, and it allows the whole team to be present with the organization. And you can see, and I've experienced it, you can see from a mile away when an organization is running around haggard, it's because they don't have an event planner or they don't have a good relationship with one. So that was such a good answer. And I hope more people give that answer in the future because it's so critical.
Yeah, and what people forget, and this is what I often say, it's like when my niece came to me and she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna get married, and I'm gonna do the wedding." I said, "Well, you have to remember, to these vendors, you do not matter. You're one and done. Like they are going to get your payment for catering and be done. With an event planner, they have repeat business, so they have the highest leverage, the highest level of service that you can possibly demand because if they do it poorly, they will never work for that event planner again. And so that's what people forget. The event planner, beyond being incredibly strategic and knowing that there's going to be problems, all the vendors are going to bring their A game to that event. And that's the difference between an A game, top tier, dazzling event and things running amok and around because you paid your vendors, they're doing their best, but it doesn't matter because they're out.
And most importantly, them bringing their A game allows you to bring your A game as the auctioneer because you're not. And I've seen certain events where you can kind of tell that there was just kind of drama behind the scenes, even when the auctioneer gets up on stage. They've gone through it, but, I've got ears like Scooby-Doo, so I'm kind of hearing things off to the side. But I'm really glad that you brought that up because the event planner doing their job allows you as an auctioneer to do yours even more successfully. And when they're strong and you've got good synergy with them, there's really no telling how far you can take an auction.
It's true. And they really ensure the success and the outcomes and those record-breaking numbers. And I love what I do. And I feel like it's such a special moment. And I hope to be able to do more auctions here in Austin, Texas, or abroad. Like we would love to do it. So if you haven't, like, we do have Biddy Up Auctioneer Instagram if you want to see what we're doing.
Absolutely. And what's your Video Up Auctioneer Instagram handle?
Biddy Up Auctioneer. I also have a website, Biddy Up Auctioneer. So it's all the same.
And and we'll end on that note. You did the end of the podcast segment for me. So
Did I?
Carrie, yeah, pretty much. Carrie, thank you so much for joining us today. This was so much fun.
Thank you, Rob.
And for more information on Carrie Frugé and Biddy Up Auctions, visit biddyupauctioneer.co. We forgot that we didn't have the .co part, so I at least got to throw that in at the end. So, so that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising, everybody. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.